Is freedom of the individual the highest value according to Torah Judaism?
In human affairs, there has always been a tension between the freedoms and rights of the individual on the one hand and the national interest, or if you prefer, the agenda or cultural and civilizational aims of the collective, of the people, of the nation. The American Declaration of Independence, for instance, refers to the inalienable rights of the individual to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However, it is clear that if taken to an extreme, where every individual acts and behaves entirely with that personal aim and pursuit of happiness in mind, then this will frequently harm the collective, the nation, society as a whole. And this raises the question of, does society, or should society, have any kind of aim, any defined purpose? The Western, that is to say the European model, which was also therefore the American model or paradigm of political and social thought, dictates that the rights of the individual are paramount, that society does not have any particular agenda or aim or purpose, and that in fact the government exists in order to guarantee the individual those rights and freedoms to do more or less as he or she pleases. But it must also be understood that this is one paradigm, but not the only paradigm. If one takes another rather ancient people with a very definite sense of nationhood, such as Russia, for example, or even better and more ancient example, China, which is a nation that has a recorded history that goes back thousands of years, then we find ourselves dealing with a very different approach to human affairs, to political thought. There is a reason why, for instance, in China, this is also true of Russia, but even more particularly so, I think, of China, there is a reason why the Chinese people acquiesce to living under the type of regime which rules today in China, which will also almost certainly continue to control the affairs of the Chinese nation for many generations to come. There is a reason for this, and that is because in Chinese thought, also in Russian thought, unity, the unity of the nation, the national interest, the cohesion of society, and therefore social order and stability are considered to be paramount considerations. These are values in and of themselves, and considered to be much greater and more relevant and more important to the nation than the freedoms of the individual to think or to do as he pleases. Now, it goes without saying that according to the Torah, and I think most reasonable people would agree with this position, whether they are Jewish or not, and whether they accept the Torah or not, a government, any government, should not have unlimited powers. And we all know that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and this is true. History and experience bear this out. Nevertheless, there is also the consideration that we have to understand that there is also another consideration, and that is the societal fabric, the overall underpinning, moral, legal, philosophical underpinning of a society. How important is that? How much emphasis to place on these kinds of ideas? And to what extent, therefore, freedoms of the individual can and should be curtailed and limited? There is a clear tension between these different views and positions, between these different civilizations. We are not, therefore, discussing personal predispositions or predilections. Rather, we are discussing differences between national cultures, and perhaps it would be more correct to say different civilizations. And this being the case, that we are discussing fundamental differences in approach and purpose between very different civilizations, the question that Torah Jews should be asking themselves is, what is the Torah's position? What does Torah Judaism have to say about this tension between the individual and the state, between the aims and purposes of Jewish civilization, assuming one understands that Jewish civilization, Jewish culture, which is all based on and emanates from the Torah? If one understands this fact, one has to then be willing to look at this issue of those national purposes, those civilizational aims of the Jewish people, which stretch back thousands of years, on the one hand, as opposed to the individual's freedoms and rights on the other hand. What is the Jewish position about this very fundamental issue, which essentially is an overarching issue, which has implications and ramifications in all areas of human activity? It affects all people, both and all of society, and the society as a society. And to my mind, it is incomprehensible that the Jewish nation, Jewish society, particularly in Israel, but for that matter all over the world, and that Jewish sages, people who are steeped in the wisdom of the Torah, it is incomprehensible to me, and also tragic in my eyes, that these issues are not being properly aired, are not being discussed, are not being examined by qualified people, that these issues are not being debated in the public arena. And very often we find it, instead of such serious and profoundly meaningful and important debates, we find people discussing all kinds of minutiae and irrelevancies, which really we should have been able to put behind us a long time ago. This is the most crucial and essential debate which the Jewish people must begin finally to grapple with, and it is high time that we do so.
The production of these videos and maintaining this channel demands much time and money. If you enjoyed this video, please show your appreciation and support. To make a donation, please go to www.machonshilo.org and press the PayPal button, which appears on the upper right-hand side of the home page. To sponsor a video or purchase Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael, please write us at office@machonshilo.org.